The council chamber stretched wide across the space station, filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Ambassador Vexthor stood at the center platform, his forearms gesturing as he spoke about the latest proposal. He wanted permission to mine the outer edges of the Sol system, where humans had built small colonies over the past few centuries. His voice carried confidence as he explained why this would benefit everyone. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the observation section reserved for Earth. His seat was positioned far from the main floor, a spot that let him watch but not participate in real decisions. He had held this position for 5 years now, and in all that time the council had never asked for his input on anything important. They smiled at him during breaks, asked polite questions about Earth's weather, and then ignored everything he said about policy. Today was no different. Vexthor talked about humans as if they were children who needed guidance. The other council members nodded along, their faces showing agreement. Some even laughed when Vexthor mentioned how Earth still used old chemical rockets for most of their space travel. Everyone knew humans were behind the times. Everyone knew they were weak. Jake kept his face neutral, showing nothing. He had learned this skill over years of watching aliens mock his species. His grandfather had taught him to be patient, to wait, to remember what Earth really was beneath the surface. Before his grandfather died, he had shown Jake files that most humans never saw. Ancient records from the first time Earth met aliens over 1,000 years ago. The records told a very different story than what the galaxy believed now. Council Prime Zareth spoke next, her insect-like face clicking as she addressed the chamber. She was old by any standard, having served on the council for nearly 200 years. Her species lived long lives and remembered much, but apparently not enough. She dismissed the human colonies as unimportant, saying Earth could file a complaint if they wished, but the council would approve the mining operation regardless. "The humans are not a threat," she said, and many in the chamber made sounds of agreement. "They fight among themselves still. They barely have weapons that could harm our shields. Let them protest from their small planet. What can they really do to stop us?" Jake stood slowly. Protocol allowed him to speak if he requested permission, though they rarely granted it. Today, Zareth looked annoyed but nodded for him to continue. He walked to the lower speaking platform, his boots echoing in the large space. "The colonies you want to mine are home to 3 million human civilians," Jake said clearly. "They have families there, children. They built those stations with their own hands over generations." Vexthor made a dismissive gesture. "They will be compensated fairly. We will even help relocate them if needed. This is not a difficult situation." "You did not ask permission," Jake replied. "You did not negotiate. You simply decided to take what you want because you believe we cannot stop you." The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then several delegates began laughing. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind adults make when a child says something naive. They had heard human complaints before. Earth always backed down eventually. What choice did they have? Jake returned to his seat without another word. He sent a single coded message to Earth on his personal device. Just 3 words in a language only a few people could read. They crossed the line. On Earth, President Helen Carter received the message in her office high above the rebuilt New York skyline. The city below sparkled with lights as evening fell, millions of people going about their lives with no idea what was coming. She read Jake's message twice, then looked at General Paul Dixon, who stood by the window watching the sunset. "It is time," Helen said quietly. Paul turned to face her. He was a career military man, 58 years old, with gray hair and steady hands. He had known this day might come ever since accepting his position. Every military leader for the past 1,000 years had known it might come. They had all hoped it would not be necessary. They had all prepared in case it was. "The Sentinel Protocol?" Paul asked, though he already knew the answer. Helen nodded once. "Activate it. Prepare the real fleet, and wake them up, all of them." Paul needed to be sure. This was not a small decision. "Every single one," Helen confirmed. "If we do this, we do it properly. The galaxy needs to remember what they forgot." Paul left immediately to begin the process. Helen stayed in her office, looking out at the city. Most people down there thought Earth was weak. They believed the stories about humanity being primitive and backwards. The schools taught history that made it seem like Earth had always struggled to keep up with advanced alien civilizations. Only a few people knew the truth. Only a few remembered what humanity had agreed to 1,000 years ago. and why. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, in a facility that appeared on no maps, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant received her orders. She had commanded this base for 3 years, maintaining systems that most people did not know existed. The facility stretched for miles underground, a vast network of tunnels and chambers kept in perfect working condition. Every day, automated systems checked temperature, power flow, and life support for the 30,000 cryogenic pods stored in the deepest levels. Lisa walked through the main control room, her team already at their stations. They had trained for this moment but never expected it to actually happen. Peace had lasted so long, Earth had played its role so well, but orders were orders and they came directly from the President. Begin initialization sequence, Lisa commanded. Wake them all. Start with the command staff, then proceed by unit. The facility hummed with new energy as systems that had run on minimal power for centuries suddenly came fully online. In the first chamber, frost began melting from a pod near the entrance. Inside, Colonel Ben Harris had been sleeping for 947 years. He had been 32 when he entered the pod, a veteran of Earth's last great war before first contact. He had volunteered to sleep, to wait, to be ready if humanity ever needed soldiers who understood what Earth had once been. The pod opened with a hiss of releasing pressure. Ben's eyes opened slowly, adjusting to light after nearly a millennium of darkness. His enhanced body, modified before his long sleep, quickly compensated for the stasis. Within seconds, his heart rate normalized and his mind cleared. Lisa stood beside his pod, watching him wake. "Welcome back, Colonel," she said gently. "You have been asleep for 947 years." Ben sat up, his movements controlled despite the long sleep. "Did we win?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. "The peace?" Lisa smiled, but her expression carried worry. "Yes, we won. Earth has been unified and stable for almost a millennium. But now we need you for something else. The galaxy has forgotten what we are. They have forgotten why they were afraid." Ben stood, his legs steady. "Then it is time to remind them." Around him, other pods began opening. Soldiers who had fought in wars the current galaxy knew nothing about. Men and women who had agreed to sacrifice their lives, their futures, their families, all to serve as Earth's hidden sword. They had believed peace would last forever. They had hoped they would never be needed. They had been wrong. The pods continued opening throughout the massive underground facility, one after another in carefully timed sequence. The medical team moved between them, checking vital signs and helping the soldiers adjust to waking after centuries of sleep. Most adapted quickly, their enhanced physiology doing exactly what the old scientist had promised it would do. Within hours, the first battalions were awake and receiving briefings about the current situation. Colonel Ben Harris stood in the command center, watching status reports flow across multiple screens. Around him, other officers from his era gathered, their faces familiar despite the impossible passage of time. Major Claire Brooks, his former second-in-command, stood to his right. Captain Vincent Cole, their tactical specialist, reviewed fleet positions on a holographic display. They had all volunteered together, had all said goodbye to everyone they knew, had all accepted that waking up would mean entering a world where everyone they loved was long dead. "The technology has advanced significantly," Lisa explained, showing them images of current Earth cities and space installations. "But the core principles remain the same. Your training is still valid. Your experience is still valuable. More valuable now than ever, actually. Because the current generation has never fought a real war," Claire said, understanding immediately. "Exactly," Lisa confirmed. "Earth has been at peace internally for over 900 years. We have maintained a military, of course, and they are well trained. But they have never faced actual combat." "You have." Ben studied the tactical displays showing the Kryn fleet approaching the outer colonies. 12 large warships plus support vessels moving with confidence that suggested they expected no resistance. "What are our current capabilities?" Lisa entered commands that brought up new information. "We have 50 Dreadnought-class ships currently hidden in the asteroid belt. Another 200 smaller warships stationed throughout the system, disguised as various civilian or commercial vessels. The orbital defense platforms that the galaxy thinks are simple satellites are actually weapons stations with enough firepower to crack a moon. And we have fighter craft. Thousands of them," Vincent whistled low. "And the galaxy thinks we are primitive?" "They see what we want them to see," Lisa said. For 1,000 years, Earth has maintained the illusion of being technologically backwards. We launch chemical rockets on purpose even though we have ships that can cross the system in hours. We build stations that look barely functional, even though they are actually fortresses. We have played the role of the weak species so well that the entire galaxy believes it. Why? Claire asked. Why hide our strength for so long? Ben knew the answer before Lisa spoke. He had been there at the beginning, part of the first contact scenario. Because we made a deal. The first aliens we met were terrified of us. They called for help, and a dozen other species came ready to destroy Earth before we could become a threat. We proved we could win that fight, but we offered peace instead. In exchange for being left alone, we agreed to limit our expansion and hide our military capabilities. We agreed to be the joke, Vincent said bitterly, to let them laugh at us. We agreed to give peace a chance, Ben corrected, and it worked for 1,000 years. Earth had time to truly unite, to heal from our old conflicts, to build a society worth protecting. But the other side of that deal was that if anyone threatened Earth or our colonies, the treaty was void. Lisa nodded. The Kryn Dominion just voided the treaty. They think they can take our colonies by force. President Carter has decided it is time to show them the truth. In orbit above Earth, other awakenings were taking place. Captain Danny Foster opened his eyes in the command chair of the ECS Vengeance, a ship that had been disguised as a mining station for the past 800 years. His crew woke around him, taking their positions at stations that looked ancient but functioned perfectly. The ship had been maintained by automated systems all this time, kept ready for this exact moment. Status report, Danny ordered, his voice steady despite centuries of sleep. All systems green. Captain, Commander Katie Webb reported from the tactical station. Reactor core at full power. Weapons charged and ready. Stealth systems active and holding. The Kryn fleet has no idea we are here. Danny studied the main display showing enemy positions. They were spread out, not expecting resistance, confident, arrogant. Good. Let them stay confident a while longer. How long until they reach Colony Station 7? 2 hours and 15 minutes at current speed, Katie answered. Then we wait. Signal the fleet. All ships maintain stealth protocols. No active sensors. No transmissions except coded laser bursts. We let them get close. Let them think they have won. And then we show them what Earth really is. The other 49 dreadnoughts received similar orders. They had been positioned carefully over the past few days, their movements hidden by the same stealth technology that had kept them concealed for centuries. Now they formed a sphere around the approaching Kryn fleet, invisible and waiting. On Colony Station 7, Governor Peter Walsh coordinated the civilian evacuation. He had received warning from Earth hours ago, giving him time to get people into the underground shelters built into the asteroid the station was attached to. Most colonists did not understand why the drill was happening now, but they trusted their governor and moved quickly. How many people do we still have exposed? Peter asked his aide. Last count shows 230 still in the upper sections, came the reply. Mostly essential personnel keeping systems running. Everyone else is secured, Peter nodded. Get those last people to shelter within the hour. Earth promised us help is coming, but I want everyone safe before the shooting starts. Do you really think Earth can stand against the Kryn? His aide asked quietly. Their fleet is huge. Our defenses are minimal. Peter smiled, remembering a conversation he had once had with his grandfather, who had it from his grandfather before him, a secret passed down through the Walsh family for generations. Earth has surprises the galaxy has forgotten about, trust me. The Kryn are about to learn a very hard lesson. High above the galaxy, aboard the massive flagship Retribution, Admiral Greg Sullivan reviewed final preparations. He was 70 years old, one of the few current generation humans who had been read into the full historical records. He knew exactly what Earth had been, what it had hidden, and why. He had spent his entire career preparing for a day he hoped would never come. Now that day was here, and he felt strangely calm about it. The orders were clear. The mission was just... The enemy had threatened civilians and ignored warnings. Everything that happened next was their own choice. Admiral, all ships report ready, Lieutenant Amy Pierce announced from her station. Stealth systems are functioning perfectly. The Kryn fleet shows no indication they detect us. Civilian evacuation status? Colony Station 7 reports 98% of civilians in secure locations. They will be fully evacuated in 43 minutes. Greg nodded. Then we wait 43 minutes. I want every civilian safe before we reveal ourselves. Prepare a transmission in all Kryn frequencies. When I give the order, I want every ship in their fleet to hear my voice clearly." He looked at the tactical display, watching the Kryn ships advance on the colony with casual confidence. They had no idea that 50 human warships surrounded them, weapons charged, crews ready. They thought they were hunting helpless prey. They were about to discover they had walked into a trap. Greg had read the old combat reports from Earth's last war. He had studied tactics that most modern humans considered historical curiosities. He understood something the current galaxy had forgotten in their long peace. War was not about having the biggest guns or the most ships. War was about making your enemy face impossible choices. War was about breaking their will to fight. The Kryn were about to have their will broken. The Kryn fleet arrived at Colony Station 7 right on schedule, their massive ships taking up positions around the small human outpost. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, feeling satisfied with how smoothly the operation was proceeding. His sensors showed no military presence, no defense platforms, nothing but the expected civilian traffic trying to flee. "Pathetic," one of his officers muttered. "They are running away without even trying to negotiate." Vexthor clicked his mandibles in agreement. "What did you expect? Humans are weak. They have always been weak. Send the final warning. Tell them they have 10 minutes to power down their station and prepare for boarding. If they refuse, we will begin destroying their outer structures until they cooperate." The warning was transmitted. On Colony Station 7, Governor Peter Walsh received it and smiled grimly. All civilians were now secure deep inside the asteroid. The station itself could be rebuilt if necessary. He sent a single-word reply to the Kryn fleet. "No." Vexthor read the response with genuine surprise. "They dare refuse? Very well. Weapons officer, target their communication array. Fire when ready." Before the weapons officer could respond, something happened that made every Kryn sensor board light up with warnings. Energy signatures appeared all around them, dozens of them, massive power readings that should not exist. Space itself seemed to tear open as stealth fields dropped and 50 human dreadnoughts materialized from nowhere. The Kryn crew stood frozen in shock. Their sensors had shown empty space seconds ago. Now they were surrounded by warships larger than anything in their own fleet. Weapons already charged and locked on target. The tactical officer tried to classify the signatures and failed. The computers had nothing to compare them to. This technology was beyond anything in their databases. "This is Admiral Greg Sullivan of the Earth. Colonial ship retribution to all vessels of the Kryn. Dominion." The transmission cut through every channel simultaneously, impossible to block or ignore. "You are in violation of human territorial space. You have threatened civilian populations under Earth's protection. You have precisely 1 minute to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." Vexthor recovered from his shock quickly. This had to be a trick, some kind of illusion or bluff. Human technology was primitive. Everyone knew this. These ships might look impressive, but they could not possibly be functional. It was a desperate attempt to avoid conflict through deception. "This is impossible," he said to his bridge crew. "Human technology is centuries behind ours. These must be fake projections or captured alien vessels. They cannot threaten us. All ships, weapons free, engage the nearest human ship." His tactical officer hesitated. "Commander, our sensors are reading those ships as solid contacts with active power cores. The energy signatures are genuine. If we attack and they are real, we could all die." "They are bluffing," Vexthor insisted. "Fire." The Retribution's main cannon responded before any Kryn ship could discharge a weapon. A beam of pure energy crossed the space between the two flagships in less than a second. It did not hit shields. It passed through them as if they did not exist. The beam struck the forward section of Vexthor's ship and simply erased it. Metal, systems, crew, everything in the path of that weapon ceased to exist at the molecular level, converted directly from matter into energy. The massive Kryn battlecruiser tumbled through space, atmosphere venting from the gaping wound in its hull, fires spreading through compartments exposed to vacuum. Emergency systems tried to activate, but most were gone, erased with the forward section. The ship was not destroyed completely, but it was no longer a functional warship. It was a tomb. Admiral Greg Sullivan's voice came through the channels again, calm and measured. 45 seconds remaining. Any ship that fires will be destroyed. Any ship that runs will be hunted down. Power down your weapons and surrender now. The Kryn fleet surrendered 18 seconds later. Every ship simultaneously shut down their weapon systems and shields, broadcasting surrender codes on all frequencies. Their formation broke apart as individual captains tried to distance themselves from any potential violence, each one desperately hoping the humans would recognize their surrender. Greg watched them scatter like frightened birds. Boarding parties deploy. I want every Kryn ship secured and their crews detained. Treat them well. Feed them. Give them medical care if needed, but keep them under guard. And someone get emergency teams over to Vex Thor's flagship. There might be survivors in the aft sections. Lieutenant Amy Pierce coordinated the boarding operations with practiced efficiency. Human Marines, many of them recently woken from centuries of sleep, moved through Kryn ships with professional precision. They were not cruel, not violent unless threatened, but they were absolutely effective. Within 2 hours, every Kryn vessel was under human control. On Vex Thor's dying flagship, rescue teams found the commander still alive in a sealed compartment near the engine section. They pulled him out carefully, treating his injuries while also placing him under arrest. He stared at the human medic working on his wounds with something between fear and confusion. "How?" he managed to ask. "Your technology, how?" The medic, a young woman named Sandra Price, just shook her head. "You assumed we were primitive because we wanted you to think that. Maybe next time try asking questions before threatening civilians." News of the battle reached the Galactic Council within hours. The initial reports were dismissed as exaggeration or panic. Humans defeating a Kryn fleet was impossible. But then more reports came in, all saying the same thing. Then came the visual recordings from Kryn sensors, showing human ships appearing from nowhere, showing weapons that tore through shields, showing technology that should not exist. Council Prime Zareth watched the footage 3 times, unable to accept what she was seeing. She had lived for over 200 years, had seen countless wars and battles, had observed dozens of species rise and fall. She had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just won. They had demonstrated such overwhelming superiority that the fight was over in seconds. She immediately called for an emergency council session. Every representative received the same message marked with the highest priority. Attend immediately. Situation critical. Earth is not what we believed. Ambassador Jake Morrison received his notification like everyone else. He prepared to travel to the council station, but he took his time. Let them wait. Let them worry. For 1,000 years, Earth had been patient. For 1,000 years, they had endured mockery and dismissal. Now the galaxy would learn the truth and they could wait a few extra hours to hear it. On Earth, President Helen Carter addressed the planet in a broadcast that would be remembered for generations. Today, Earth revealed its true strength to the galaxy. We did not want this confrontation. We have maintained peace for 1,000 years by hiding who we really are. But when the Kryn Dominion threatened our colonies and our civilians, we had no choice but to respond. She paused, letting her words sink in. Some of you are learning tonight that Earth is not what you believed. Our military is not weak. Our technology is not primitive. We have maintained this illusion for centuries as part of an ancient agreement, giving both us and the galaxy time to grow and mature. That agreement was broken today. I want to be clear about what comes next. Earth does not seek conquest. We do not want an empire. But we will protect our people. We will defend our territory. And we will no longer hide who we are. The galaxy mocked us for a millennium. Now they will remember why they once trembled when they first met humanity. The emergency council session assembled faster than any meeting in galactic history. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the chamber, though many attended via hologram rather than risk traveling to the station. Nobody was certain how Earth would respond to the larger galactic community, and caution seemed wise. Council Prime Zareth opened the session without the usual formalities. We have all seen the reports. We have all watched the footage. Earth has demonstrated military capabilities far beyond what we believed possible. This council needs to understand what happened and what it means for the galaxy going forward. Murmurs filled the chamber. Fear mixed with anger mixed with confusion. Some species felt betrayed that Earth had hidden its strength. Others worried about what else humanity might be hiding. A few quietly wondered if their own past interactions with humans might now have consequences. Ambassador Jake Morrison entered the chamber and walked directly to the main floor, not the observation section he had occupied for 5 years. Nobody stopped him. Nobody questioned his presence in the center of the room. The rules had clearly changed and everyone knew it. You want to understand what happened? Jake asked, his voice carrying clearly through the large space. Let me show you. He activated his holographic display and footage began playing. Ancient footage over 1,000 years old that most council members had never seen. It showed Earth's first contact with aliens, specifically with the Vreen Collective Exploration Fleet. The footage revealed a very different Earth than the galaxy knew. It showed a unified world, not the divided primitive planet of current mythology. It showed human warships moving with precision and speed, engaging Vreen vessels in brief combat that demonstrated clear technological superiority. It showed human tactics that were sophisticated and effective. This was humanity's first meeting with alien life, Jake narrated. The Vreen stumbled across Earth while we were in the middle of unification. The final wars that brought our world together. They saw our weapons, our ships, our military capability, and they were terrified. The footage shifted to show the Vreen calling for help. Messages sent across multiple channels to any species within range. Dangerous species discovered. Request immediate assistance. Within weeks, a coalition fleet arrived. 12 different species. Over 300 ships prepared to subjugate humanity before it could spread across the galaxy. You came to destroy us, Jake said simply. A coalition of advanced species decided Earth was too dangerous to exist as a free civilization. You planned to attack without warning, to hit us before we could respond, to make certain we would never threaten the galactic order. The footage showed the human response. Earth's fleet had been waiting, hidden throughout the solar system. They surrounded the coalition fleet 3-1, weapons locked on every target. But they did not fire. Instead, they broadcast a simple message. We do not want war. We offer peace and cooperation. Sareth watched this with growing understanding. She had not been on the council then, but she had heard vague stories about Earth's first contact. The official record spoke of humanity being welcomed into the galactic community as a minor species. They said nothing about threatened war or human military superiority. The coalition agreed to talk, Jake continued, and in those talks we reached an agreement. Earth would be quarantined. We would limit our expansion to our own solar system. We would hide our military capabilities and pretend to be primitive. In exchange, you would leave us alone to develop our culture and society without interference. We agreed because we believed your assessment of us was correct. We were violent. We were dangerous. We had just finished centuries of warfare among ourselves. Maybe we did need time to mature, to learn how to be peaceful, to build a civilization worthy of the galaxy's trust. Jake's expression hardened, so we kept our end of the bargain. For 1,000 years we played the role you wanted us to play. We let you laugh at our primitive rockets while we hid faster-than-light ships in our asteroid belt. We let you mock our weak defenses while we built weapons platforms that could crack planets. We let you think we were divided and foolish while we maintained perfect unity and discipline. We endured a millennium of scorn and dismissal, all because we gave our word we would, all because we wanted peace more than we wanted respect. The chamber was completely silent now. Every representative understood where this was leading. The treaty had been broken, and not by Earth. 3 days ago, the Kryn Dominion announced plans to forcibly annex our outer colonies. They did not request permission. They did not negotiate. They simply decided to take what they wanted because they believed we were too weak to stop them. They threatened 3 million human civilians, including children, and they laughed about it. Jake looked directly at the section where Kryn representatives sat, their faces showing fear and shame. The treaty had one clear provision. If anyone threatened Earth or our colonies, the agreement was void. Your actions voided a 1,000-year-old peace accord. What happened next was your choice, not ours. Council Prime Zareth spoke carefully. Ambassador Morrison, this council was not aware of the original treaty. These events occurred long before most current representatives took their positions. The historical records available to us make no mention of such an agreement. Because you buried them, Jake replied. The coalition was embarrassed that a primitive species had surrounded your fleet and offered mercy instead of destruction. So you rewrote history. You made Earth into a joke rather than admit you had been afraid of us. You passed down the lie and forgot the truth. He pulled up more footage, this time showing current events. The Battle of Colony Station 7, as the engagement was already being called. Kryn ships surrendering in seconds after seeing what human weapons could do. This is what happens when you forget the past. You make assumptions based on lies, and those assumptions get people killed. An elderly representative from a species Jake did not recognize stood slowly. What does Earth want now? Revenge? Territory? Are you here to conquer us as some fear? Jake shook his head. We want the same thing we wanted 1,000 years ago. Peace, cooperation. A galaxy where species work together instead of preying on each other. But we will not hide anymore. We will not pretend to be weak. And we will not allow aggressive species to threaten the innocent, whether those innocents are human or anyone else. President Helen Carter appeared via hologram, addressing the Council directly. Earth proposes a new galactic charter. Every civilization, regardless of technological level, has the right to self-determination. Any species that violates this principle through force or coercion will face consequences. Not sanctions, not resolutions. Actual consequences enforced by those capable of enforcing them. Several representatives began objecting immediately. The idea of Earth-setting galactic policy was too much, too fast, too threatening to the established order. Zareth let them voice their concerns for several minutes, then called for quiet. And if we refuse this charter? She asked Helen directly. What then? Helen's expression remained calm. Then Earth will enforce it anyway, but without your input or approval. We would prefer to work with the Council, to have your support and cooperation. But with or without you, we will protect those who cannot protect themselves. The galaxy has had 1,000 years to fix its problems. You have failed. Species are still enslaved. Civilizations are still destroyed. Pirates raid with impunity while the Council debates. That ends now, not because we want power, but because someone has to stand up and say enough. Someone has to be willing to actually do something instead of just talking about it. General Paul Dixon, also present via hologram, added his perspective. The galaxy mocked Earth for a millennium. You forgot why your ancestors were afraid when they first met us. Not because we were cruel, but because we were effective. Because when humans commit to something, we follow through completely. You wanted us weak. We became strong. You wanted us divided. We became unified. You wanted us to forget how to fight. Instead, we perfected it while you all grew comfortable and soft. The session continued for hours, arguments flowing back and forth. Some species supported Earth's proposal immediately, particularly smaller civilizations that had suffered under the current system. Others opposed it vehemently, seeing their influence and power threatened. Most remained undecided, wanting to see how events would unfold before choosing sides. Finally, Zareth called for a preliminary vote, not binding but showing general sentiment. The results were close. 48% in favor, 41% against, 11% abstaining. Not enough to pass the charter, but enough to show significant support for change. We will reconvene in 1 week, Zareth announced. Representatives should consult with their governments. This decision will reshape the galaxy, and it deserves careful consideration from everyone. As the session ended and representatives began leaving, Zareth approached Jake privately. Tell me truthfully, Ambassador, if the Council rejects your charter, will Earth really act alone? Jake met her eyes steadily. Yes, we hoped for cooperation, but we are prepared to proceed without it. The age of talk without action is over. The week between Council sessions passed with feverish diplomatic activity. Earth sent delegations to dozens of worlds, explaining their position and answering questions. Some meetings went well, particularly with species that had suffered under the current galactic order. Others were tense, especially with civilizations that benefited from the existing power structure. The Kryn Dominion faced consequences for their actions. Earth peacekeeping forces occupied their military installations and began dismantling their offensive capabilities. It was done professionally and without cruelty, but it was thorough. The Kryn would keep defensive forces sufficient to protect their own territory, but they would never again threaten their neighbors. Other aggressive species watched nervously, wondering if they were next. Earth made no threats, but the message was clear. The rules had changed. Actions had consequences now. When the Council reconvened, the chamber was packed. Every species sent their highest-ranking representative, many attending in person rather than via hologram. This vote would determine the galaxy's future, and everyone wanted to witness it directly. President Helen Carter attended in person this time, standing beside Ambassador Jake Morrison on the main floor. General Paul Dixon was also present, representing Earth's military. Behind them, via hologram, stood Admiral Greg Sullivan and Colonel Ben Harris, symbols of both Earth's current strength and its hidden history. Council Prime Zareth opened the session formally. We gather to vote on Earth's proposed galactic charter. Before we proceed, President Carter has requested time to address the Council. The floor is yours, Madam President. Helen stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. Thank you, Council Prime. I know many of you are afraid of what Earth represents. You see our military power and worry we will become conquerors. You remember the old stories about human violence and fear we have not changed. I understand these concerns because they are the same concerns we have about ourselves. She paused, making eye contact with representatives around the chamber. Humans have done terrible things throughout our history. We have fought wars over resources, territory, ideology, religion. We have oppressed and enslaved our own people. We have committed acts we are still ashamed of thousands of years later. We know what we are capable of when we lose our way. But we also know something else. We know that power without restraint leads to tyranny. We know that good intentions without action mean nothing. We know that sometimes the only thing stopping evil is someone willing to stand up and fight it. Helen activated a display showing dozens of smaller civilizations, species that existed on the fringes of galactic society. For 1,000 years we watched these species suffer. We watched the Kryn prey on them. We watched pirates raid their colonies. We watched the Council debate and pass resolutions that accomplished nothing. We watched, and we remembered our own history, our own struggles against those who had power and no conscience. Some of you will say we are imposing our values on the galaxy. You are correct. We believe every civilization deserves the right to determine its own future, without fear of conquest or coercion. We believe the strong should protect the weak rather than exploit them. We believe actions matter more than words. If these values offend you, then yes, you should vote against our charter. But ask yourselves this. In the past 1,000 years, how many species were enslaved while the Council debated? How many civilizations were destroyed while you voted on non-binding resolutions? How many times did you witness injustice and do nothing, because acting might be inconvenient or difficult? The chamber remained silent. Several representatives looked uncomfortable, forced to confront truths they had ignored for too long. Council Prime Zareth spoke, her voice thoughtful. President Carter, what makes humanity qualified to be these protectors? What makes you different from every other species that claimed noble intentions before becoming tyrants? Helen smiled, though sadness touched her expression. Because we know what it is like to be the underdog. Because we spent a millennium being mocked and dismissed. Because we had the power to conquer you all 1,000 years ago. And we chose peace instead. Because we are still capable of choosing wrong. And we built safeguards into our own system to stop ourselves if we do. General Paul Dixon stepped forward. Every human soldier, from Admiral Sullivan down to the newest recruit, swears an oath. Not to our government, not to Earth, but to the principle of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The moment we violate that principle, they are duty-bound to remove us from power. We understand that power corrupts, so we built checks against that corruption into the foundation of our military. Can we guarantee we will never become what we fight against? No, but we can promise we will try our best and we will accept consequences if we fail. That is more than most species offer. Admiral Greg Sullivan spoke from his hologram. I am 70 years old. I have studied galactic history extensively. In that history, I see a pattern. Strong species dominate weak ones until someone stronger comes along. The Council talks about peace and cooperation, but you enforce nothing. You watch species like the Kryn commit atrocities and you do nothing meaningful to stop them. Earth is not asking for your permission to act. We are offering you a chance to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. You can vote yes and help us build a better galaxy, or you can vote no and watch us do it without you. Either way, the age of aggressive species acting with impunity is over. The vote was called. Each representative cast their decision electronically, their choice recorded and tallied by the Council's systems. The process took only minutes, but those minutes felt like hours to everyone watching. The results appeared on the main display. 52% in favor, 39% against, 9% abstaining. The charter passed by the narrowest margin in Council history, but it passed. Zareth reviewed the results carefully, then made the formal announcement. The measure passes. Earth's proposed galactic charter is adopted as Council policy. Species that violate the territorial sovereignty of others through force will face enforcement action. The details of implementation will be worked out in committee, but the principle is now established. She looked directly at Helen. Earth has won what it wanted. I hope you prove worthy of the trust you have been given. So do we, Helen replied honestly. We will make mistakes. We will face situations where the right choice is not clear, but we will always try to do what is right, not what is easy or profitable. That is all we can promise. Over the following months, Earth began implementing the new charter. Peacekeeping forces deployed to several systems where aggressive species had been threatening their neighbors. Most situations were resolved through presence alone, the threat of force being enough to make aggressors back down. A few required actual combat, brief engagements where Earth demonstrated overwhelming superiority and willingness to follow through on warnings. The Kryn were not the only species to be forcibly demilitarized. 3 others faced similar consequences for refusing to abandon their conquests. Earth's approach was consistent. Give them a chance to comply voluntarily, then enforce compliance if they refused. No negotiations, no endless debates. Just clear warnings and swift action. Smaller civilizations began looking to Earth for protection. Requests came in from dozens of species asking for defense treaties or peacekeeping deployments. Earth responded carefully, sending advisors and defensive systems but avoiding anything that looked like occupation or control. The goal was to help species defend themselves, not make them dependent on Earth. In the facility beneath the Sahara Desert, Colonel Ben Harris and his soldiers prepared to return to their long sleep. Their job was done, at least for now. Earth's current military had proven capable of handling ongoing peacekeeping operations. The ancient warriors were no longer needed. It feels strange, Major Claire Brooks said as they walked toward the cryogenic chambers. We fought so hard to build the peace that let Earth hide for 1,000 years. Now we woke up to end that hiding. I am not sure if we succeeded or failed. Ben considered this. We succeeded. Earth had 1,000 years of peace to grow and mature. Now it is strong enough and stable enough to be what the galaxy needs. We gave future generations the foundation they needed. That is success. They entered their pods one by one, the systems beginning the process that would put them back to sleep for another 1,000 years if necessary. Ben was the last to enter his chamber, taking one final look at the facility that had been his last memory for so long. Sleep well, Colonel, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant said softly. Thank you for everything. Thank you for waking us when we were needed, Ben replied. Then the pod closed, frost beginning to form on the glass, and he drifted back to sleep. Admiral Greg Sullivan retired to Montana, to the farm his family had owned for generations. He was tired, ready to rest after decades of preparing for a conflict he had hoped would never come, but he kept his communication devices active just in case. Earth might need his experience again someday. Captain Danny Foster and the crew of the Vengeance returned to their position disguised as a mining station. The ship would continue to serve as part of Earth's hidden ready if needed, but hoping to remain concealed. 50 dreadnoughts were revealed now.